Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back. In today's news, we do have a surprise Xbox Game Pass announcement to talk about. I mean, how surprised can we really be, though? They always have some kind of new, exciting day one game, but I think this one especially is going to hit home with a lot of people. Also, those Switch 2 rumors continue to roll. Did we just find out the price, and is Nintendo going a little bit more premium with their next platform? Well, we're going to discuss that today in News Dose. For our first story here, though, I do have some good news for you Pikmin fans out there. For years and years, this community has raved about how more people need to play this franchise, something I'm actually in complete agreement with, by the way. But it looks like our wish has finally been granted. That Switch effect has infected Pikmin 4 over in Japan. In just 3 weeks' time, it's already topped 600,000 units sold in the region, 596,000 of which is physically tracked. And oh, by the way, it's also been the best-selling physical game for all 3 weeks. Now that is quite impressive on its own, but especially when you start to realize that Final Fantasy XVI and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom also released in the last few months. So it's not like Pikmin 4 released during a slow period of the year. It has had tough competition, and in fact, it's actually outpacing Final Fantasy, which is a huge series in Japan. I don't know if a lot of people went into the year predicting that Pikmin 4 was going to be selling faster than Final Fantasy XVI in Japan, but there you go. Pikmin 4 is another smashing hit for the Nintendo Switch. Just kind of go ahead and add it to the list. The Switch effect is very, very real, and this is really great to see for the Pikmin series going forward. Now, we do also have some PlayStation news today, though. It might not necessarily be what fans want to hear, or maybe they do. It can be kind of viewed as a good thing, but what's happening here is that Sony, in their fiscal year report, suggested they delayed, quote-unquote, a portion of their unannounced first-party games to 2024. Now, delays are never fun for fans, we all know this, but as I've repeated on this channel an infinite amount of times by this point, and that will continue today, be patient. Delays happen for a reason. It's the same reason that Xbox delayed Starfield. It's to improve the game to meet fan standards for what should be a day one release. I know console warriors always like to jab at each other when their first-party games gets delayed, but the reality is this is a part of gaming, and if you want a good game, sometimes a delay is needed. If you're going to poke fun at one delay, just kind of understand it's going to come back around eventually. That's all I'm saying. Consumers should always be aware of that. But this is interesting in an aspect that Sony really doesn't have that many confirmed games. So you have to kind of wonder, what exactly are they talking about? Maybe for Factions, that Naughty Dog multiplayer game? Bungie decided to delay it earlier this year. It didn't exactly meet their expectations. But there's not really another game that comes to mind that we knew was originally planned for 2023. So maybe this points to some surprise announcements for 2024, assuming these delays weren't too significant. But the fact that Sony had to tell investors this tells me that this has impacted their 2023 plans, and it might be another reason why Sony's PS5 forecast is in question on whether or not they can actually reach their 25 million units sold goal for this fiscal year. Switching gears here, though, let's go and talk about Xbox Game Pass and an exciting first-party announcement that was made today. This happened over at QuakeCon, so you might actually already know where this is going, but the leak was indeed true that we talked about last week. It has now been confirmed. The Quake 2 remaster is official, and it's actually even better than what we imagined. We'll get into that here in just a second, but yes, Quake 2 is available right now as we speak for Xbox, PC, PlayStation, and the Nintendo Switch. You can pick it up for $10 on any of these platforms, including Xbox Game Pass for no extra cost. You gotta love it. But check this out. It's completely cross-play. That's always such a huge feature as it injects a much more grand community day one, and it allows them to thrive for years and years to come. It's always frustrating to me when you have a new multiplayer game that doesn't take advantage of crossplay, and then it just kind of struggles to find a community. Crossplay is amazing when it's console to console. There's really no reason not to include it when you can. Now, PC, on the other hand, they do have a huge advantage when it comes to mouse and keyboard, so that's a little bit different. But the good news here is that if PC players want to do crossplay in Quake 2, they will have to use a controller. So they're making all the right decisions here, though crossplay isn't the only new interesting feature. It also comes included with Quake 2 64, which is a very nice bonus. It also takes advantage of gyro motion controls if your controller supports it, which is very beneficial when it comes to first-person shooters. And then here, this is the big news for you longtime Quake fans. Not only is this a remaster with enhanced visuals, but as an added bonus, it also comes with a brand new expansion titled Call of the Machine. This is a new single-player expansion developed by Machine Games, which worked on Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. So you're not just getting an enhancement here, there's actual new content here, and that's all the more reason to dive back into this legendary game once again. However, that's still not everything, because there's one last surprise here. For those that want to play local split screen, well, it supports that as well, though there is an interesting catch here. So the Switch, Xbox One, and PlayStation versions support up to 4-player co-op, whereas the Xbox Series, that goes all the way up to 8-player split screen. Now, I've never really played 8-player split screen before. That does seem like a lot of people on one screen, but I mean, to be fair, TVs are pretty big today, so it's not really the same as when I was a kid. You know, back in the day, it was rare to see a 50-inch screen, whereas today, a lot of people have like 70-plus inch screens anymore, so 8 people could technically play on one screen like that if they wanted to. The fact that all of this is available for Game Pass subscribers at no extra cost, or for just $10 though, this is how you sell a remaster. There's actual effort put into it, and unlike other games, I don't want to name any names here, Red Dead Redemption, Quake 2 is actually priced properly. Maybe, just maybe, Take-Two should go talk to Bethesda and Xbox on how to properly release a remaster. Though technically, we can't even really say Red Dead Redemption is a remaster. It's honestly just a port. But hey, if you want to play Quake 2, it is available today as we speak. Now, this next story here, though, is in regards to those Switch 2 rumors. Again, the floodgate is just kind of opened up, and while I'm sure that some of it is legitimate, there's also other rumors out there that might be a little bit more questionable. And I do want to give a fair warning here. This rumor is coming from Zippo, which has had a mixed track record in the past. Now, to be fair, he has gotten some things right as well. As far as I'm aware, he was actually one of the first, maybe the first person to leak Mario Wonder, or at least the description. He said they were going to announce a new 2D Mario that wasn't in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, and it was going to be different, and, well, I mean, it does appear that he was right. So, Zippo is one of those leakers that it's difficult to say whether or not they'll be right or wrong. Only time will tell. But he's once again making waves for allegedly leaking the price of the Nintendo Switch 2. He posted this up over on his blog, and let's just go take a look at what he said. It reads, "Speaking of which, I can finally let this one out of the bag. I've been sitting on this information for about a month, and I can finally let it out, as it seems like the perfect time for it. Without further ado, $399. That's the apparent golden number for Switch 2 pricing that I've been told by numerous sources familiar with what's going on at Nintendo. In fact, and this is a first for me, instead of paraphrasing sources like I've done since I started this, I'll let you hear from the horse's mouth. We'll call this particular source Chuck. Here's what they told me. $399. That's the golden number that they have in mind. It's the price that works in terms of power of their new system. It's the price that works for them making a decent profit, and it's the price that they think works for the audience that they're trying to maintain. No more, no less." So there you have it. The Switch 2 is coming next fall. It's going to go back to an LCD screen, and I'm independently hearing that it's probably going to cost around $400. Now, there's going to be a lot of skepticism over his claims, which I think is the right call. Fans should be skeptical with every leak they hear, not just when it comes to Zippo. But assuming what he says is correct, does a $400 price tag point to a more premium device with a significant boost of power? You know, this is a little bit more expensive than what we typically see when it comes to Nintendo. So with an increased price, does this mean that it's going to be a more premium product this time? Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that we do have to kind of keep inflation in mind. So $400 today isn't necessarily the same as $400 7 years ago. Times have changed fast. But what I will say here, though, is that I am optimistic that $400 with an LCD screen will provide a big boost in raw power. Obviously, it's not going to be the equivalent to the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. This is going to be a handheld hybrid console. But I think the hope here is for it to be more similar to the PlayStation 4, which to me, that would be a massive, massive win for Nintendo. I mean, the thing about the Switch is that it's more similar to something like, let's say, the Xbox 360. And the PlayStation 4 generation, looking back at it, was a big jump up from that generation. And I think especially for Nintendo. It's kind of strange to think about this, but we really haven't seen Nintendo take a big jump in graphical power in like over a decade. I mean, if you look at the Wii U to the Switch, that was more about the hybrid console form factor. That was the big jump up from the Wii U. But the Switch, it's not some powerhouse or anything like that. But can you imagine having a Nintendo handheld that has the power to play games that looks like they can run on a PlayStation 4? There's some excellent looking games on that console, which I'm sure several will be ported over to the Switch too, but it's not just that. This would be the first real big jump that we've seen for Nintendo first-party games in a very, very long time. Games like Xenoblade will no longer be a blurry mess. I mean, that's a great game, but in terms of technical capability, it has some room to improve its graphical style. Zelda, I mean, here's another one. I mean, just think about how glorious Zelda can be with PlayStation 4-esque visuals. Games like Pokemon, hey, they might actually run properly, though some of that might be Game Freak's fault. We can't really rule that out, but you kind of get what I'm saying here. If they can at least be the equivalent to the PlayStation 4, this would be easily worth $400 in my opinion. $400 for a Nintendo device with the power of the PlayStation 4, I am all in for something like that. Now, we do have one last topic to go over here real quick, and this is for Exoprimal. Apparently, Capcom was asked if they would consider a Dino Crisis crossover in the future. They already have Street Fighter in the pipeline, and, you know, with this game revolving around dinosaurs, Dino Crisis would make a lot of sense. Well, Exoprimal's director responded and said that if there's enough demand from players, Leviathan very well could make this a reality. So, I don't know. I mean, this would be a cool crossover and everything, but truth be told, I'm sure fans would much prefer a Dino Crisis remake. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Capcom hasn't revisited the series yet. The Resident Evil remakes have been such a huge success for them, and Dino Crisis being just so similar to Resident Evil, it'd be a no-brainer. It would also allow Capcom to grow yet another franchise. Just saying, but I mean, if I were to bet, it'll eventually happen, but I guess in the meantime, we can at least have hope that Dino Crisis makes its way to Exoprimal. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, do you want the next Final Fantasy game to be turn-based or action? And the results here are quite interesting. It is rather split with a slight edge for turn-based games, but that is something to think about. This is a series that grew as a turn-based franchise, and, you know, there's still a lot of fans that crave that experience. I think for Square Enix, though, because the production value has just gotten so high, it's a huge AAA experience now, so they believe that action combat will connect with an even bigger audience. That's likely why they have gravitated more towards this action direction. Now, I think for me, though, I'm really good with either or. I actually have no preference here just because I do expect every Final Fantasy game to be different. I ultimately just want it to be fun, have a great world, have a deep narrative, and have memorable characters that's going to stick with me throughout time. That's what makes a good Final Fantasy game for me, and I thought that Final Fantasy 16 did a good job with that. I feel like it nailed those components. Now, I understand that some want that turn-based experience, but I still thought 16 was a great game. I guess what I will say here, though, is that Final Fantasy 16 is a little bit on the easier side of things. I did not use any of the assists, and I still felt like that there needed to be more of a challenge. And I do prefer 7 Remake's combat as opposed to 16. Personally, I felt 7 Remake was a good combination of action with a hint of classic combat thrown in, whereas 16, it's really just flat-out action. Either which way, though, it's very interesting to see how split the community is right now on turn-based versus action. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.